Massachusetts Senator and Democratic presidential contender Elizabeth Warren wants to tax you gun owners back to the Stone Age, along with a huge list of every gun control measure you could possibly imagine. Probably the largest single slate of gun control initiatives since Michael Bloomberg wrote down his own name on a scrap of paper. I'm Steve Green. This is Right Angle with Bill Whittle and Scott Opp, brought by the members of BillWhittle.com. And gentlemen, I don't know if you saw this, but Michael Bloomberg's anti-gun Surrender Your Rights group, I think it's called Surrender Your Rights, had a big presidential meeting in Iowa over the weekend on Saturday and invited a bunch of presidential candidates. I think 5 or 6 of them showed up, and Liz Warren really did her homework on this one. She had a huge list of gun control proposals after last week's horrible 2 shootings. And let's see what we've got here. If elected, Warren promises to raise taxes on firearms and ammo purchases by 30 and 50% respectively. That's on top of her plan for federal licensing for gun ownership. That I think it includes a training course and all the rest. You're going to have to apparently pass this thing before you can buy a gun. And presumably that would include a database of who bought what and received what training and all the rest. Expanded background checks, although why you need that when you've already got to go to school for this thing, right? And a renewed ban on assault-style weapons. Bill, back in 1994, the GOP took control of the House of Representatives for the first time since, I think, 1950 or 1944, whatever the year was. Yeah, it was 1950. And Bill Clinton blamed that loss on the 1993 assault weapons ban that he pushed through the Democratic House and Senate that year. And now you would think Liz Warren would have learned from that lesson, or has something changed in the country politically, do you think, since 1993?
Well, we've certainly had more of these mass shootings.
Yeah.
The thing that's most interesting to me about this, Steve, is let's say that Elizabeth Warren becomes not only president but dictator. Apparently, she has some interesting ideas about how the presidency works. But let's say that she becomes president, dictator, and is able to enforce all of these things. So, who is this going to affect? In other words, if you have to, let's just say for the sake of the argument, that you have to retroactively go to a gun class, a gun safety class, and register, or else you become a felon on the spot, right? Let's just say that's not too far off what they want. Who is going to do this? I mean, who's going to do it? The only people that are going to do it are going to be the people who are not criminals and who don't want to be. The only people that would follow such a law are the law-abiding citizens, and it strikes me that they're not the ones we have to worry about, which tells me something else too. It tells me that this isn't an accident, and it's never been an accident. This is not about gun control. It's not about crime control. It's not about murder control. It's about submission. It's about making sure that the people out there in the great, flyover country, eventually over time will be divorced from their implements for resisting government takeover. I'm not saying that Elizabeth Warren is planning a military coup. I'm just saying that it's in her nature to think that that could be a good idea if it would advance the common good or whatever the case may be. This inability to leave people alone, this absolute determination to tell other people what to do has been with us from the beginning of humanity. And whether you want to call them chiefs or sultans or kings or earls or barons or whatever you want to call them, it's been there, this ongoing human genetic defect. And in a democracy, the desire to control other people has to be, at least once anyway, won through persuasion. And so what you do is you take the most horrible thing that you can see in the news or that happens in our society, come up with a way to tie that to the end result that you want, which is a disarmed population, and then it's just a matter of time. And anybody who has a problem with this, obviously, is a person who supports school shootings and mass murders and is a white supremacist and a Nazi and a nationalist and a xenophobe and a homophobe and all the rest of this stuff. So this is how it's done. It takes a while. But when you get right down to it, the only reason I'm able to sleep at night is because because the middle of the country, the sensible middle of the country, is pretty heavily armed. And they're not using those arms to commit crimes against each other. But those arms are doing something. They're doing something right now. All of those AR-15s and all of those semi-automatic rifles that are in the hands of law-abiding citizens are actually on the job right this second. And what I mean by that is their very presence in the numbers available deters some of these tyrannical types.
Absolutely.
And it will continue to do so, I hope.
Yeah. Actually, Bill, just a quick follow-up. Was it a Freudian slip when you said that Liz Warren wanted to be chief?
Let me respond by asking you this. How?
Well played, sir. Well played. All right, Scott, Vox. You're familiar with that publication, are you not? The progressive young adult infotainment site. Even Vox said that Warren's goal is likely, and this is a quote, downright impossible. And Michael Bloomberg's namesake publication, Bloomberg, admitted that Democrats may only manage timid steps, even if they do manage to slip into power next year. If this is all for show, then what kind of show is it?
It's called a probe. It's a test. Elizabeth Warren is a legislator. That's her career. And if she were serious about this kind of thing, this wouldn't be a campaign announcement. This would be a piece of legislation. This would be a piece of legislation in the Senate that already had a raft of supporters from her own party who were coming alongside of her to say, yes, it's time. But she's not serious. What she is trying to appeal to a very small percentage of registered Democrats, those who show up for primary elections in the various states, with the message that's most likely to appeal to them. And she's intentionally putting things in there that she knows she can't get in order to shift the conversation as if those were rational topics of discussion. So, jack up taxes 30 to 50%. Yeah, let's throw that in there so that we can get people to start talking about not 30 to 60% or 50%, but how much should we jack up taxes on guns and ammunition? And, there's another aspect of it is eliminating the 60 vote requirement to overcome a filibuster. That's a structural change that she wants to do in there. She doesn't think she's going to get that, but it's like, okay, well, let's just throw that out there. Like, how many votes should there be before you to stop a filibuster? And what she's trying to do is basically shift the window of discussion to the point where some of these topics, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe more, become serious topics of civic consideration. She's genius in doing this. And I think in reality, she also knows that she's not going to be president of the United States, at least not during this cycle. And so this is the time to seed the ground, so to speak. This is the time to put out those probes and to indicate a trajectory and to try to see how many people will line up behind that parade, how many people are going to salute that flag. And I think what she's going to find is that there are a lot of people, even in her own party, her nominal party, her real party is Democratic Socialists of America, but her nominal Democratic Party, who will say, you know what, I like to hunt, I like to target shoot, I like to take the boys out and do some work at the range. I am not going to pay an extra 50% for ammunition. That's ridiculous. And she's going to alienate those people who are part of her base. And this will further drive a wedge in the body politic and in the American populace. And the division serves only those who wish to foment revolution.
Oh, my. I saw a meme on Facebook just in the last couple of days, and I can't remember the second half of it, but you don't actually need it, really. The first half of it said when the founders wrote the Second Amendment, they hadn't just come home from a hunting trip.
Yeah.
Think about where they had come back from was the second half, but I'm not going to get the wording right, so I'm not going to worry about it. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm going to quote something that, I wrote yesterday for PJ column. Warren's gun control push is the center of her plan to reduce gun deaths by 80%, and that's down from around 40,000 gun deaths annually, maybe not quite that many. And as Bill said, her proposals, except I guess probably for the tax on ammo, would affect very, very few people. When you take out people like the gangbangers who shoot up Chicago every weekend. And when you take out suicides, and this just broke my heart when I read this, but according to the most recent figures, and I think they were from 2016, almost 2/3 of gun deaths in the United States every year, 64%, are suicides. If you really, if you really want to reduce gun deaths, you attack the root cause, as our Democratic friends used to say about crime in the 1980s. You want to address the root cause of suicide. You wouldn't worry about what Bill or Scott or I'm doing with our weekends down on the range or our fall hunting trip. You want to address the causes that drive people to kill themselves, to put a pistol in their mouth or against their chest or whatever horrible thing it is that they think is their only escape. And you take that away, you take those groups away, and really what you're left with are murders of passion, basically. You know, husbands furious at the wife, or, you know, all these horrible things that happen in day-to-day life. And these things don't take an assault rifle. They don't take a pistol. You can use a knife at the dinner table as easily as you can use a handgun, and at the dinner table it's probably even more readily available. So really what we have in this country isn't so much a gun violence crisis, although we do have these horrible mass shootings. Maybe there are some legal remedies for that are constitutional that we should seriously address. But what we have in this country is a suicide epidemic. It's the highest in the world, and until we address that, it doesn't matter what we do or don't do about guns, because that is the real issue facing this country, and everything else is just an attempt at a huge government control grab, because, well, that's what they do. They take murders and they take suicides and they use as an excuse to increase their own power at the expense of your rights. And that's the truth on that. And this is Right Angle, brought to you by members of BillWhittle.com. If you like programming like this, please click over, become a member. We'd love to have you on board. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.